I had to take my shoes off for this one. I don't really know how to start this video, so I'm just gonna get into it. I know a lot of people are confused and a lot of people have questions and a lot of people are concerned, but as far as like what I'm about to talk about, this goes strictly just to like new followers, my followers in general that have been following us since day one, that have been rooting and supporting and loving on us and praying for us and just overall being a positive light in our lives right now and always cheering us on. At this point in my time, I feel like it feels right to share this. It's obviously not going to be the full story. I'm hoping that what I do share is going to raise less of a concern or questions. So basically, we're just going to rewind a few years. I was in a really bad situation that has followed me for quite some time. I needed protection. I needed a companion, and so I got Dace. Dace was going to go into training, this, that, and the other, and then the pandemic happened. Mind you, last year and the year before, I was doing really good with my business. I had weddings booked. I was working 2 full-time jobs, a corporate job, and then maybe being an independent business owner. I was making a lot of money, and it was just me living in an apartment. I had been with Kroger, was the corporate job. I had been with them for 6 years. They were great for the first 4 years, but the last 2 years it was just awful. Anyone that works for Kroger might know this, and I'm not really bashing on the company, but they ain't too great. So I had the incident where I needed to get Dace, and then things started happening at work, and I just wasn't okay with it. It didn't matter how many times specific incidents were caught on footage. Men were fired. It still continued on, and Kroger didn't do the best that I know that they could have to protect me. And so up until last year of September, I had quite a bit of money from the years prior to pay for my surgery that I got done. That is posted on my YouTube video if you want to go check it out. If you haven't already and that's why you're confused, go ahead and check it out. I'm not hiding anything. I wanted to reward myself. I had wanted that surgery for a very, very long time, and I felt like I deserved it. And so I got that done, and then with that having done, I had a complimentary, like a Botox thing, but it was like, you could get it anywhere, but I got like it in my lip. It's like a 1 milliliter, I don't even really know how it works, but it didn't do anything. It was free, so I was just like, sure, just why not? So we did that. But in the midst of all this, with the whole thing with work and things from years ago not leaving me alone, we were just no longer safe I was no longer safe at my work, and I was no longer safe at the apartment, even with Dace. It just got to the point to where I could hear God telling me to just leave. I felt it in my heart, like I was just called to just leave. I didn't know where I was gonna go, but I just knew that I needed to leave. I had reached out to an old friend who needed a roommate. We had planned to be roommates together. In the meantime, while I have left my apartment, her lease still isn't up, so I had to find somewhere to go. An old acquaintance reached out to us and offered us their place, their spare room, and we took it. In the first few weeks there was issues with Dace and the landlord and whatnot, so we ended up having to find somewhere else to go for a while. During this whole time, I'm on an LOA because of my surgery, which half of it was prepaid for before the pandemic, so it's not like I could have just got the whole refund back, because they don't do that. But so in the midst of all this, I'm recovering from my surgery, and Dace had just gotten out of boarding school because the pandemic lifted, so Dace was finally able to go into boarding school, which was a lot of money, but he needed it. I needed it. I'd never had a dog before. I don't know how to train a dog, so anyways, boarding school it was. So we ended up having to go to another friend's house. We stayed there for a few weeks, and then that's when I was recovering, actually. And then I was recovered, and then we were able to finally go back to the acquaintance's house, and we were there for about a month and a half, 2 months. I can't even remember. But that's where I started like filming some things, because I was able to. I just I had always wanted to start a YouTube channel. I just didn't know how to start, and the more I thought about it, the more I realized I was wasting time. So anyways, I just started a YouTube channel, and I just kind of started vlogging in such a really bad time of my life, but that's when I started. And I wanted to vlog the entire journey of like my surgery, because that's all the things I watched on YouTube, was everyone's like recovery and this, that, and the other. Anyway, so that's why I wanted to vlog about my experience. And then it kind of just progressed. I wanted to start vlogging more, so I vlogged, you know, Palm Springs. I started vlogging behind the scenes of weddings, me doing the Botox thing, and blah blah blah. I told the couple that I was going to be out by January 1st, because that's when I was going to be able to move in with this roommate that we had previously spoken of planning on doing. As time got even closer, and me speaking with, you know, like my therapist at the time, because I was seeing a therapist, it just didn't feel right. It didn't feel right moving in with this individual, so I didn't do it. I called it off. I told her, like, I'm sorry, but it's just not gonna work. So we haven't had a home since September. We've been living in our car since January. In the midst of like September and December, I ended up putting in my 2 weeks at the Kroger job during my LOA. So once I went on LOA, I never really had to go back, if that makes sense. I was just fed up with the fact that they just didn't care about me anymore. They didn't care about my safety. They didn't, anyways. So I started, in those 2 months of not having a job, I DoorDashed, and it wasn't the best thing, because I mean, gas is super expensive, but I mean, it got my bills paid. And yeah, I mean, I blew through all of the savings that I had. Dace's boarding school took up a majority of my savings, and I knew that it was going to, but I knew it's what he needed. It's what we needed. I didn't want to get rid of him because I didn't know how to train him. I just think that's so wrong. I just like put my faith in the Lord, and I just trusted him. And so blew through the savings within those 2 months, paid for his boarding school, and started living in our car in January, and that's where we've been ever since. Obviously, all of my coworkers found out we were homeless, not poor, not living on the streets, just homeless. We have everything that we needed, like the essentials and stuff, as far as like blankets and clothes and food and water and hygiene products and whatnot. We just didn't have a home, and it was super cold. I mean, it's January and it's Oregon. It's like the middle of winter. The coworkers started offering like a place for us to stay, and I was just very wary about it. I just didn't want to feel like a burden, you know, with Dace pet owners. I know you know where I'm coming from with this. Like, it's just hard when you have a pet. It's just like an addition. I don't know how to explain. You don't know how other animals are going to get along with your animal. You just think it's kind of a lot when other people are offering you to stay in their home. I just feel like it was a lot, and I just didn't want to be a burden. I didn't want there to ever be any problems with any coworkers, employees, and so I didn't want to live with any coworkers, because I just wanted them to still be my coworkers. I didn't want anything to go wrong. February came around, and everyone told me to be super leery of this one coworker, but to, you know, take the offer if it's offered, and of me staying with this coworker. And so we did for about 2 weeks, maybe 2.5 weeks. Things were just awful kind of from the start. Long story short, the police had to come rescue me, essentially, and we all ended up having to get a hold of another coworker in order for me to figure out where to go from there on out, because I was not mentally and emotionally stable. And so I ended up staying with this other coworker for like 3 weeks, and that's where I batched a lot of my content in her spare bedroom, which was her son's bedroom. That's the content that you're going to see on my Instagram if you go to my Instagram. But then her son ended up coming back to visit, and so I couldn't stay there anymore, so I left. A couple months go by, maybe a month and a half goes by. It's a couple months or a month and a half or something like that. I ended up staying with another coworker. It wasn't even planned. It was just kind of one of those